Hello, everybody, and welcome to Good Stuff for another edition with a guest I'm really looking forward to talking to today and hearing from his perspective, how things are going just in general, and talk about his path. But first, just remember, if you get a chance to head on over to YouTube, you can find all the past videos on there. Good Stuff with Kevin. As I've said the last couple weeks, your feedback has been tremendous. Excuse me. We love hearing from you and love connecting. So continue to reach out on all those social media platforms. But without further ado, we've got a guy on the show today that I just told him I'm about 1/100th of the player he is, but anxious to see how much I resonate with him. A former Marquette star that I know I watched right after my career ended, an ex-NBA player, and we'll say current player still, and we'll get into what he's still doing. But Travis Diener, it's great to have you on the show, man.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I got to start by telling you I have not shown any video or done anything before, so you're the first guy here. I gotta show this clip.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I've watched this a lot.
Well, let's stop. Like, I gotta know, like, maybe we can dive into this a little bit, but what's the X's and O's? And for those of you that don't know, I guess we should just, why don't you do this because you've got the experience. Talk to them a little bit about TBT and this $1 million winner-take-all tournament. Why don't we break it down with that first?
Well, it's so unique because it's a tournament that, you're playing for such a large amount of money. And, I guess when I was growing up and I was a little kid, you kind of dream up these scenarios. Like if you could have a shot for $1 million, would you be able to make it? And, it actually came to fruition. And, to play in games that have that intensity level, the passion, these players are really good. It's been for me a wonderful experience the last 3 years competing in this tournament.
So this particular play right here, is it a breakdown of anything? Did you guys have any? And we should actually, Travis, we should tell them, if you're looking at the screen, you guys are up to, there's 20 seconds on the shot clock, but you'll notice there's not a game clock. Talk to us a little bit about what they've done for the end of the game score.
Yeah, it's this Elam ending concept that has taken into effect the last 3 years in this tournament. And, it's the first dead ball after the 4 minutes timeout in the fourth quarter. And then you play to essentially 8 points is added on to the winning team score at that point. So in this scenario, we have to get to 78 points before sideline cancer does. So obviously there's just a shot clock. There's no game clock. And we're trying here initially, we have Dwight Bikes and Jameel Wilson running kind of a high pick and roll to see what they're going to do. And they did a good job switching it because Jameel is such a wonderful three-point shooter. So the end of this play is kind of just a breakdown. And fortunately enough for us, at the end, they kind of collapse on Elgin, who has a dunk, and he makes a great pass to me. And, I kind of tell everyone I did the easy part. I made a wide open shot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is kind of something I would think going back to my coaching days. I remember everybody getting sucked in and guarding the ball, and not paying attention or losing track of your guy. But here it is. I mean,
so as you can kind of see, as Bikes came off there, they kind of both came to him because, he could have had a three there.
Right.
He dropped it down to Cook, who made a great pass to me, and I knocked it down.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think that you do have a flair for the dramatic, if you will, or just the ability to make a big play with a game on the line. You can see that throughout your history. It's happened time and time again. Like, what do you attribute that to?
I think it's just something that's come naturally for me. I think when you prepare yourself for so long and you're confident in your abilities, the time and score is kind of irrelevant, or you relish in those moments at the end of games. And I've always throughout my career wanted the ball in my hands at the end of games, not necessarily to shoot, but to make the right play, to make the right pass to where the ball needs to go. So I think it's something, and I failed a lot of times too. And I think in order to have a lot of success in those situations, you're going to have to fail as well.
Well, I definitely want to come back to that. I think that's a huge thing that I believe in. But you also said something with preparation. I don't think people understand maybe what all goes into it. So, it is part of that, right? The preparation, the failure. But how would you, I think it's crucial maybe to young guys, knowing that you're a confident player, those things go into it. How would you develop that in young players today? What would you suggest to them that it takes to gain that sort of confidence?
Well, preparation and work. Yeah, I think you gain confidence through finding success through your work habits and knowing that when you are in those situations, you can be successful. So I attribute that to, when I was a little kid and that work ethic that has, translated throughout my whole career that, whether it's in the first quarter or the fourth quarter, any situation, I've always had a great belief in my abilities, maybe more so than I should have. But for a guy that, is 6 feet and white and playing a predominantly black
Yeah.
sport against bigger, better athletes, you have to have a belief in yourself that is unwavering. And I think it's come from, hours and hours of work since I was a little kid.
Right. See, that's the one thing we have in common. The 6 feet and white thing. That's where it ends, though. But I think like try to give the public like some glimpse into that, like what it takes to play at elite level. I may have gone to like a Cavs practice, for example, and I can see like how hard those guys work, but then they get on TV. LeBron doesn't work that hard. He does. Like try to get them to understand. Like not only I'm more. Hey, here's what it takes to be excellent, right? You've been there, but let's talk about sustaining it. Here you are, 38 years old, and you're still playing the game that you love. You've been able to sustain this for all your life. How?
Yeah, well, first off, your first comment, I think it's a disservice to the people that don't truly understand how hard it is to be a LeBron James or a Dwyane Wade or to maintain that level. Obviously, they were blessed with incredible athletic ability. We all know that. But I saw it firsthand with Dwyane, and I've heard stories about LeBron's work ethic. And that it kind of people get lost in that because they are such great athletes. But there takes a level of commitment and work that makes LeBron James and makes Dwyane Wade, or all the stars. So for me, it's been, I think, consistently that work ethic that, okay, my level was never going to be the level of a LeBron James.
Mm-hmm.
But I still have a level that I feel that I've reached the highest potential that I was blessed with. And I think that gives me satisfaction, is knowing that when I can look myself in the mirror, that I maximize my, God-given ability.
Yeah, I think you said it right there. I was going to come back with it, but you got the most out of your tank, right? I mean, and I think buying into your role and understanding what that is. One thing I'd really love to hear from you that I think is key that I would say to guys, and I just remember playing, how do you work out on the days that you don't feel like it? Like, how do I go into work on the days that I don't feel like it?
Yeah, I mean that's difficult. I think it's difficult for any person in any profession. I mean, you'd be lying to tell you that I went to work every day, or well, I'll call it work, but went to play basketball or practice basketball and enjoyed it every day. I mean, there are times in college where I wanted to quit. I wanted to give up. I wanted to transfer. But I think you lose sight of the ultimate goal, the long term goal of, to get to this point, I got to put in each day, and it's not just going to happen overnight. So while there are days that you don't want to work as hard as you need to work, I think you just suck it up. You find ways to trick your mind
Mm-hmm.
into working hard. Maybe finding a way to compete against yourself when you're not competing against someone else. For me, that was a hard part because I always enjoyed the competition of competing
Mm-hmm.
against somebody else. But now when you're going through drills by yourself, how do you
Yeah.
find a way to motivate yourself or compete against yourself to make yourself better? And I've found that over the years that I've tricked myself into really competing against myself more so than anybody else.
Yeah, man, I'll never forget my freshman year, 95% of the time, get my butt kicked in practice. I wanted to pack up and go home. But I think it brings me to, what you said there. I really think there's a why. There's an underlying why that each of us have. And I don't know if you could speak into this a little bit, but I really have a great deal of, at least as a parent now, 3 boys, like obviously faith and family. Those are at the top of our list. But I'm trying every day to preach to them resiliency. Like you got to be resilient. You got to persevere. What would you say to that trait being a key component of people that reach an elite level? over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's number one. I think the perseverance, the resiliency, and how you deal with adversity. I think in basketball, you're dealt with so much adversity, and it's a microcosm of life. You're going to deal with stuff that you don't see coming, and whether in basketball, it could be an injury, it could be you're not playing as much as you want, you don't have the role that you want. Things go wrong, and
Right.
I think the best part of being a basketball player is that time when you overcome something
Mm.
and you just beat it, and you can look back and you're like, wow, well, during that period of time it was awful. I wanted to quit.
Yeah.
I hated my coach, I hated a teammate. But then a week later, things change. Things can
Yeah. Right.
change so rapidly in sports, good or bad. And so you try to stay humble with the successes, and then when you are down, you find ways to find your confidence, to find the reasons why you're there. And I think that's a product of being resilient, being persevere through adversity.
Yeah, and I think one thing too, Travis, is it's like, that shot that you just hit or the shots that you hit in college, or, we can go on and find them. Like, are you willing to invest? Like, are you willing to take 10,000 shots to earn the right to take one, right? Is that similar to what you're talking about? It's that
Yeah,
process.
absolutely. I mean, it's and I think if you ask my teammates, they would have said the same thing. Like, we wouldn't have, and I'm trying to stay like humble about it, but they
Right.
knew that was why I was in the game at that point. It wasn't because I was going to get a defensive stop. I mean, you saw, if you
Yeah.
watched the game, I was fouling to get out of the game, but they knew, and they wanted me to have the ball in that situation, to take that shot. And it's because they've seen it before. They've seen me play. Obviously I'm older, and I have a lot of credibility built up with those guys, but it is the tens of thousands of shots I've taken throughout my career that gets me to that point where I know that, if I take that shot, I feel really good that it's going to go in. It might not, but in that case it did. And fortunately, we got the job done.
Right. Well, and I think that's repetition over time. And like you said, the preparation. And before you release it, it's going in, even if you end up missing. I just think a lot of people aren't willing to invest that time because they want instant credibility. And it doesn't happen that way nowadays, or in general, I guess I would say. Let's talk about your career path. I love to just hear Marquette University, people are probably, when they think of that, I mean, how do you not think of 1977, right? They won the national championship. Kind of, we just alluded to your why. Like, give us your why as to why you settled on Marquette University.
Well, two things. First, it was I wanted to stay relatively close to home, so my family and friends could watch me compete at a high level. And then I think the major reason was Coach Crean. First, having a vision in myself that maybe I didn't see at the time, and then having a vision in the program, because I wanted to go to a program that had a chance to win big. And at that point, when I committed, Marquette was not a
Right.
national name at that point. It wasn't 1977. We were coming off of a lot of mediocrity. So it was the vision he had of myself and the program. Obviously, he's like, we have this kid sitting out right now this year, and which was Dwyane. He's fantastic. But every coach says that the kid's sitting
Right.
out. But within one time of seeing Dwyane work out, it's like, yeah, well, he's a monster. We have a chance to be really good. Like I said, the vision for myself. So it had a lot to do with Coach Crean and the proximity to home.
Is it safe to say, I don't think some people realize the impact a coach can have on a player's life. Is it safe to say that Coach Crean just impacted you like nobody else?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you're that young and you're so naive and you don't know any better, and um, and believe me, I hated him for a lot of days in my college career. I wanted
Right.
to quit. I wanted to transfer. I mean, we already talked about that. I wanted to fight him.
Yep.
But now it's like, there's no way I have the career I have without what he instilled in me, the vision he saw in me. I think he believed in me more than earlier on than I believed in myself.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so, yeah, I owe a lot to him. And I tell him that, every time we speak, I appreciate everything you've done for me. And without him, I don't have this long of a career.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. And I guess what I love about that is I think as a coach, I think you're always just trying to get out of individuals what they have in there, and sometimes they don't realize that, right? And you're harping on that every single day. It truly is tough love, right? I mean, that's just part of the process or the journey. So let's talk about that journey. You alluded to some of this a little bit, but give us some ideas then when you're at Marquette, and we'll get into 2003 for sure. But what were those up and downs like, and what specifically? I want to come back to that failure. What has that taught you? What is it still teaching you?
Yeah, well, I mean, from your personal experience, you went into your freshman year. Well, I went into my freshman year of college going against an all-conference point guard who was our starting point guard, and to be honest, a totally different player than me. And it was hard on me. It was hard to compete every day against that, and it made me better. But it was like, I have to go through this. I got to go through this.
Right.
I got to go through this. And one of the things towards the end of my freshman year, we lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and I had a 3-pointer. It was last second 3-pointer. If I make it, we win. I airballed it. So part of that is like, okay, in that next situation, what happens? How do you do it? How do you deal with, you're in this pinnacle of the NCAA tournament, everybody's watching, you get the ball at the end, you don't come through. How do you go about moving on from that? And for me, that was fun. It was fun that it wasn't fun that I missed a shot at the time,
right.
But it was fun it was fun to come back that summer and improve, because then the following year, the question marks were on our team. Well, we have Dwyane coming back. We have Robert Jackson, who was our 5-man, who was sitting out the previous year. He was coming in. But can Travis Diener be the starting point guard on this team and get the job done? And that's what everyone was saying, leading into the Final Four year. And, I'm not going to lie. I took it personal and how can I get better? And I think you learn from, dealing, like I said, with that adversity. You find motivation in maybe outside influences at times, just to trick yourself into being better.
Yeah. Well, how much? Now, I don't want to one up you, but my first year when I was a freshman, the guy I went against was a first-team All-American, so you can tell how that went every day. That was no fun. But to this day, my best buddy. So, and I'm very appreciative of him whooping my butt every day. But how much of that? And I think this is where the game has changed some to a certain degree with some guys. But how much of that do you attribute to mental toughness and just that mindset that you need to bring?
Well, I think it's all of it. Obviously, if you look at me, I'm not the most physical guy, but I think I play a lot stronger than I look. And I think a lot of that is a mentality.
Yep, I agree.
And I think I always felt, whether I was right or not, I was the best player on the floor. Even if Dwyane was by my side, if I was competing against Dwyane in practice, I felt like I was a better player. And that's just something that I think throughout the years of work, I had to have that belief, first of all. Otherwise, I was finished from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, just continuing to work, and you gain that toughness. I don't know how much you can teach mental toughness. I think you can go up maybe 10, 15%, but if you don't have a strong will or a strong mentality to battle through things when they're not right, then it's hard to teach. I really believe that that's hard to teach.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go back to another comment you said earlier. Let's get into D Wade and Marquette a little bit more here now. You said it took one workout. I think you and I mean, this isn't an arrogant statement, but I think we just have the ability to walk in the gym and within 2 minutes who the guy is, right, or the guys are. It's pretty obvious. I mean, eventually there's some things that separate and so on and so forth. But why was he that guy? What was it that separated him that you saw that right away? And let's face it, you probably wanted to, that impacted you in a way that you wanted to raise your level as well.
Oh, I absolutely. First to that comment. Yeah. I mean, when you're surrounded by greatness or great players, it I think naturally makes you want to elevate your level, because you want to get to that level. You want to help him. But with Dwyane, it was really easy. Like I said before, talking about the greats, he had a quiet work ethic. He wasn't who he is now. He wasn't as outspoken. He was really quiet in college, but he had an incredible work ethic that we saw daily. He was extremely unselfish. I mean, the guy, for being probably the best college basketball player that year, wouldn't take bad shots. And, there was no ego to him, which is hard to find nowadays. A incredible unselfishness, a work ethic, a team first guy.
Right.
So naturally, like, that's why we won, is not because of his incredible basketball talent, but because he was unselfish, because he was fun to play with, because he made all of us better. And I think in return, with our team, we made him better as well.
Well, and it seems like then two words that I would go to, they're very common. That was the standard then, right? And so every day you came in there, that was the standard. And within that standard, you created a culture, of expectation amongst the team. So I don't want to jump to conclusions here, but I got to think 2003 basketball wise was one of the best years of your life. I mean, just to, here you guys are 26 years later. I don't want to go into the Final Four game and talk about that too much, but that didn't go, of course, as how you wanted it. But just what was that like? What was that experience? Because I think that was a great team, right? Nonetheless, you made it to the Final Four. That's difficult to do. Give us some insight to that and that experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was a incredible season, but it was tough in the beginning. We started off maybe like 8 or 9-3, so we lost some games we shouldn't have lost. So you deal with that adversity. You don't know how good you are, and we won a couple of games late that I think gave us a collective confidence that, look, we are really good. Like, we can make a run in the tournament. And what made us a really good team, it was kind of those qualities that I talked about before that, Dwyane had, but I think collectively we had them too. We were really, really unselfish basketball team. We cared about each other. We had a chemistry that I think was unmatched throughout college basketball, with the exception of maybe a few teams. So I think when you have that, and when you have your leaders, for me, I was a lot more vocal than Dwyane was. Dwyane was more I'll set my example by the way I work. I was more more demanding at the time. Yeah. But I think we together, it was the perfect combination, not just from a basketball standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint. Is you got a different angle from both of us. So, to answer your question, yeah, I think when you're that young, you don't appreciate the moment. You don't appreciate that we went to the Final Four. I think I appreciate it now because more people come and talk to me about it. Oh, I was here when you guys did this. I came here. But at the time, as kids, you're just like, okay, we beat Kentucky. Now the next day it's like, oh, we got Kansas.
Yeah, you're just focused.
Yeah, and then you lose to Kansas by 50, and then it's like, oh, now what? Now Dwyane's deciding if he's leaving or not. We're figuring out like how we're going to get better. So you're lost in the moment, and there's not a lot of joy in it, which is sad. But it's the reality of being a basketball player.
Yeah, for sure. And I would even go as far to say it's even worse a coach, man, because when you get engulfed in it, you just
a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, you don't appreciate the wins, and you spend too much time on the losses trying to figure it out. You really have to balance out. I've always said I love to learn. I want to be the dumbest guy in the room, but I don't want to stay the dumbest guy in the room. But when it comes to coaching then, and playing for that matter, you got to have the unique ability I got to learn through a win as much as I did as a loss, but I would much rather learn through a win, right? But yeah, you're locked into that. So you alluded to something that I feel is so special to anybody listening, whether that's a team, business-wise, athletics, at home, whatever it is. I think of my freshman year, we actually went to the Final Four NAI, and you said chemistry. And any team that I've coached or that I've been a part of in all those years had great chemistry. And that's hard to get, right? I mean, it's really hard to get because you didn't have that every year. So what are some of the things that you would suggest to people that are in charge of teams right now? How can you get that type of chemistry?
Well, I think naturally your best players or your best leaders have to be completely bought in. They have to be the most unselfish guys. They have to have the work ethic because they set the example for everybody else. So and good. As those leaders, whether that's a coach, your head coach, or your best players, they have to hold the best players maybe even more accountable than the 10th guy in the team, because the 10th guy in the team is looking at that, and he's like, well, you're letting him get away with this. And I think Coach Crean was harder on say Dwyane, myself, Rob, more so than he was the 9th or 10th guys. And I think that's how you first off, you set a culture. And then in a basketball team, I think if you're going to have a lot of success, it comes from the players. The coaches can only do so much, whether that's right or wrong. It's a player's game. I think we had a common belief in ourselves that year that we kind of disliked Coach Crean, and we kind of like, okay, we're gonna prove you wrong. We're gonna prove to you. We're gonna come together as a group. Whatever you throw at us in practice, whatever you say to us, doesn't matter. We're together. We're almost against you at the time. Right. And that was his way, I think, of breaking us down and then building us back up to when, that tournament came, that we were all together and it was just one big family.
Yeah, that's great, man. I totally respect that. And what about basketball story? You got like a favorite basketball story of all time, or anything you'd want to share on another player or NBA or anything in general that you think people would like to enjoy?
For me, like, and this is not really a basketball story. It was more so like my initiation to the NBA is, I'm like I talked about, I never dreamt about playing in the NBA when I was a little kid, because I always thought it was just unrealistic. My only goal growing up was to play high school basketball for my uncle. I thought that was the NBA. So as I'm going through, my teenage years and I'm watching college basketball, I'm fascinated with, at the time, Duke, in the early 90s was a school. It was Grant Hill, Bobby Hurley, Leitner. And then, I'm drafted into the NBA by the Orlando Magic. And one of the first guys I meet is Grant Hill. And for me, that was like, initially I'm like a little starstruck. I'm like, how is he going to be? He's like this. And he was the most professional, one of the best teammates I've ever played with, just a class act. And for me, that was refreshing, that this guy who was kind of an idol of mine when I was a teenager, watching him, to have that kind of, class about him, even though he had been at the top of the world basketball wise, that meant a lot to me. And I learned a lot from that, like always treat people with respect, whether it's whoever it is. And he always set that example for me as a rookie. And then I tried to carry that on to this day with younger players.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. What's next, I guess, for you? I mean, you don't honestly have to tell us everything, but it's an interesting career path, right? Like you played in college, you're drafted, you play in the NBA, you go overseas, you take some time off and coach. Now you're an Italian citizen, you jump back into playing now. So what an interesting path that you would coach play. Little Jackie Moon like here, I guess maybe you're but like what do you think might be next for you on this path and this journey?
I'm up in the air right now, but I keep going back and forth, because I am 38 years old, and then in the basketball world that's ancient. But it's hard for people to find something besides their wife, their kids, maybe their faith in God, that you truly, truly love. And for me, that's basketball, and that's playing basketball. So to give that up, I know is going to be really, really difficult. So I enjoy going to workout. I enjoy going to practice. I enjoy most off, I enjoy being in the locker room. I enjoy the camaraderie that comes with being a basketball player. Whether you're winning or losing, I think there's value in all of it. So to give that up is going to be really hard. And I gave it up for 3 years. And that's the part I missed the most was competing and being in the locker room. And I understand that I can't play forever and that it is winding down. So I'm kind of torn. Do I want to go back for another season? Or do I want to start my next chapter, which will involve basketball at some level, whether it's coaching or, whether it's a basketball academy, something like that. So kind of up in the air right now.
Yeah, well, it's interesting what you say, because I think I literally told somebody this today, that I'm 43 years old, Travis, and like I'm starting to realize like half my life I've done nothing in terms of working out, because the first half, that's all you did, and when you don't have it, and of course I was fortunate to be in coaching, you do miss it. You hit the nail on the head, man. Competing and being a part of a group and a special team, I think is really huge. So when you're struggling with that next phase, give me a call and I'll tell you all about it. Hey, I wanna you're the best guest when it comes to the finish, because I call this rapid fire, 3-pointers for obvious reasons. So I get to dish off to the shooter and you get to knock it down. All right. So this is going to be a piece of cake for you.
Perfect.
First question, and if you got to take a little bit longer, by all means, go ahead. But if people could take away one thing from this talk and just kind of hold on to it, what would you want it to be?
I always like the adversity. I love the point of you're going to deal with stuff in your life, what professionally, personally, socially, whatever it is. And when you can come out of that, I think that's when you have true happiness, satisfaction. Like I fought the worst times of my life and I came out better than I was before. So I think as a basketball player, that's always relevant. It's always there, because you're going to have games, you're going to have moments, you're going to have maybe seasons that don't go the way you want. So if you can just battle through and deal with it after it's finished, it's so satisfying when you can deal with that and come out better.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I love it. Okay, number 2, if Travis could have stepped in Kevin's shoes today, what would have you asked Travis that I didn't ask today?
Boy, that's a good question. This is a good talk, because it's not the basic interview questions. It's more insightful, more breaking down my personality, things like that. So I thought it was really good. I wouldn't have changed anything.
There you go, man. That's good stuff.
You get an A+ in my book.
All right. Well, number 3 then, good stuff. Just something I say, and I don't know. It's just a catchphrase that's been something I use for everything and anything. But what's some good stuff that you can give us here in closing? Anything that you might feel is appropriate, or just in general?
Just keep fighting. I love, with everything that's going on in the world today, with the virus, with racial inequalities, police brutality. I think trying to stay positive. Every time you turn on the news or TV, everything is so negative. And I think through sports and through watching live sports again, it gives us some sort of positivity. It gives us some entertainment, a release, so to speak. So I just like the fact that, we can hopefully sometime soon we can get being back to, just being a good human beings and some positivity, because right now everything is so negative, and it's hard to see the light in what's going on. And I try to emulate that in my life with my kids and in my families. Everything's not just doom and gloom. There's a lot to be thankful for, and this virus sucks, but we'll get through it and we'll move on. And it's kind of like what we talked about, dealing with adversity. How are you dealing with what's going on with the world today? And
that's right.
When we look back on this 6 months from now, a year from now, we'll be better off.
All right, man. That's some good stuff right there. Hey, if anybody wants to follow you social media wise, where can they go to? I know Twitter. Anywhere else, or in general?
Yeah, just Twitter, Diener Travis. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm pretty much I'm a loose follow. I post funny stuff. I don't take myself serious at all, and I don't get wrapped up in how people really feel about me. So.
Yeah, all good, man. Well, hey, Travis, I could go on here for a while. We could talk some hoops and everything else in general, but I just want to appreciate you and just tell you how much I appreciate you coming on here, number one, and just opening up, being vulnerable, being transparent with us. I think you've said a lot of things here today that I hope people, that if they can't relate to it, they can kind of dive into a little bit more and self-reflect. So definitely added a lot of value and impacted people here today. Thanks much.
Well, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a good time. And hey, once again, look back and just listen to some of these things that Travis is talking about. I think they can be very applicable to you in your life, and definitely raise the bar. And looking forward to, once again, as I always say, hearing from you. Until next time, good stuff.